A workday as a general practitioner, level 7 in the doctor career. I will fast forward until we see some symptoms. I'm just going through the list of easy exam options I can do with the patient, like check eyes, check ears, take temperature, etc. Just a quick note, I use the mod MC Command Center to make my days last twice as long, which means time passes a little bit slower in my game. However, the gameplay is still the same. You just won't be able to get as much done in one day. Finally, our first symptom. This patient has a fever. This is just a template I made for this video, but I keep a cheat sheet with this same information in front of me so I can follow the symptoms to diagnose the patients. The color that the symptoms are written in correlate with the color boxes next to the diagnoses. This patient has a fever, so we know he either has sweaty shivers, llama flu, or burning belly. We will have to run more tests to determine his diagnosis. But as I pan away, I think I caught the patient grabbing his belly, which is a sign of a stomach ache. Though I am not 100% sure that is what I saw, so I am going to keep an eye on him while I process his mouth swab. Here, the patient is showing the fever symptom again. My general practitioner has finished running the swab. I checked to see if it has narrowed down the diagnosis options at all, but I am still seeing multiple diagnoses that have fever as a symptom. At this point, I make the decision to also add stomachache to the symptoms, as I am 90% sure that is what I saw. So if we take a look at our list of symptoms again and add stomachache, burning belly is the only diagnosis that has both fever and stomachache. So that is our diagnosis. I go ahead and diagnose the patient. I won't know if I am correct until after treatment. Burning belly requires surgical treatment. As a general practitioner, I need to perform 3 surgeries to get a promotion. I finished 1 surgery on a previous day, so this will be my second. She's clearly really good at this.
Yes.
Success! Patient is cured, which means we were correct. Let's move on to our next victim, patient. Fantastic! We have symptoms right off the bat. This patient is sneezing, and it looks like she has a spot rash as well. There are 2 different diagnoses that have both sneezing and spot rash. This patient has either llama flu or triple threat. However, I don't think children can get triple threat as that is treated with surgery, and I have never had to perform surgery on a child. Let's finish running simple tests until it allows us to diagnose the patient and see what options it gives us. Here we go. The option for weak diagnosis has appeared. And look, triple threat is not an option. So this patient definitely has llama flu. The treatment is a quick vaccination. Now let's start performing basic exam options on our next patient. This patient has a fever. She either has sweaty shivers, llama flu, or burning belly. We will have to run more exam options to diagnose her. We have gone through all of the basic exam interactions and have not narrowed it down enough, so I am going to analyze her swab sample. I try to keep an eye on as many patients as I can to watch for symptoms. I come back to the patient to see if that narrowed down my diagnoses options, but I still can't make a definite diagnosis. So I am going to move on to the next patient and try to keep an eye on her to see if she shows any more symptoms. Right off the bat, I see this patient has a headache. A headache is an automatic diagnosis, because the only illness with that symptom is bloaty head. So this patient 100% has bloaty head. We still need to run exam interactions until the diagnosis option opens up. Now we can diagnose and treat this patient.
Oh.
The treatment for bloaty head is a shot. Next patient. This patient already has her diagnoses narrowed down to 2 options: itchy plumb bob or sweaty shivers. Let's run some basic exam interactions to see if we can diagnose her. This patient is scratching all over, which means she is itchy. This is a symptom of both of the diagnoses we already have: sweaty shivers and itchy plumb bob. Let's run more basic exam interactions. The patient still hasn't shown more symptoms, and I still have the same diagnosis options. So I'm going to run a treadmill test. That is on my task list also, so it will help my job performance for the day. It looks like the patient now has a spot rash as well, which wouldn't really help us narrow down the diagnosis because both of the illnesses we haven't narrowed down to also have that symptom. However, after running the treadmill test, we now have a guaranteed diagnosis and are able to diagnose the patient with itchy plumb bob.
Clavy Plips. Mikos.
Or a bow.
Itchy plumb bob is treated with a surgical procedure, so this will be my final surgical treatment to become eligible for a promotion. Yay! Another successful surgery. Oops, I forgot about this patient. She looks busy. While my sim uses the restroom, I can look for patients with obvious symptoms to admit to an exam bed. That little girl was swatting in front of her face, which is an automatic diagnosis of starry eyes. So I will admit her to a bed next. I decided to admit another child as well. Sometimes I like to admit a few patients and then go back and diagnose them, depending on how much time I have left in the day. This patient is swatting in front of his face, which means he also has starry eyes. I tried to admit another patient, but the interaction got canceled for some reason. So I decided to just diagnose and treat the patients I already have. Even though I already know his diagnosis, I still need to run some basic exam interactions to unlock the ability to diagnose him. Now I can diagnose and treat the patient. Starry eyes is treated with medication. Now, let's run some basic exam interactions to unlock this girl's diagnoses interactions. We already know she was swatting in front of her face, so she definitely has starry eyes as well. All right, let's diagnose and treat this patient. I've gone ahead and admitted a couple more patients, so let's just jump into it with some basic exam interactions. This patient is swatting in front of her face, which we already know means that she has starry eyes. So let's go ahead and diagnose and treat her. I also noticed that this child in the background is scratching, which means she will either have sweaty shivers or itchy plumb bob. I admit another patient, and then head over to work on our girl who is scratching. On my way over, I noticed that she also has a fever. Looking at our list, I can see that she definitely has sweaty shivers. Again, we have to run some basic exam interactions to unlock the diagnoses option. Now we can diagnose and treat the patient. The treatment for sweaty shivers is to inoculate. At this point, I don't have enough time to diagnose and treat another patient. I did begin to examine the next patient before realizing this. Usually, once my taskbar is filled up and I have completed all of my objectives to receive a promotion, I will stop treating patients and either work on my own needs or perform upgrades on objects throughout the hospital until my shift is over. Yay! I got promoted to medical specialist!